Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live show on YouTube of the CardFellas Show. If you're listening to us on the podcast, every Wednesday we're live at around 10:30, 10:45, depending on when we can get going. And Chris, we're going to be talking about some football today. Hopefully you're doing well. We like to rotate for those who are new to the podcast or new to the video cast. We like to rotate through the sports, and we've spun the wheel and we're back on football. And we're talking about a set this time around that you and I know very well because back in 1989, there was a lot to be had.
There was, but this was a set that was really kind of a breakthrough set. And that up until 1989, Topps was really the only one making a set. Fleer had kind of like this team type of set that they made. There was packs of those Fleer cards, but there weren't player cards. It would be like, they would show a picture of Bo Jackson. They would say something like LA Raiders about to score a touchdown. I've actually bought a ton of those because I just dig them.
Yeah.
But at that point, really, Topps was the only player in football cards. In 1989, we had Score jump in. They had put out a baseball product the year before, but it was their first year in football. And ProSet came out in 1989 as well. So Topps had some competitors now, which was new to them, some real competition. And ProSet was an interesting case because they were based in Texas. They were like basically 10 minutes away from Beckett at the time. And there was a businessman named Ludwell Denny he was as Texas gets because he was a big man and he wanted to do big things. And they built a huge building. They had their own printing presses so that they needed to make more cards. So they just pressed the button and started making more cards. So a pretty cool deal, very interesting, time at that point because cards were booming. It would be very similar to what we saw like in 2021. Everybody wanted to get in the game, and Ludwell Denny made a deal with NFL Properties to build this set. And he got, with his licensing agreement, he was able to get NFL's photos as well. Yeah. So I think, we've talked about like the 86 Topps football set here and kind of how bland some of the photos are. And a lot of them are just kind of guys standing on the sideline. These are real action photos. The card stock was, I don't want to say glossy, but it was, it was more magazine style rather than newspaper style like the Topps had been. So very, very different.
Yeah, and you mentioned the guy who created all this, and he's a disruptor, and that's what this really was. When we talk about 1989 pro set football, this was a disruptor. And you also mentioned the pressing the button to print more, and they did. This set will be known for its massive print runs. And I remember this set vividly because it was everywhere, and it was really inexpensive. You could go buy a box of this. I remember buying a box of this at Sam's Club for $9.99. Like, they were easily readily available. And then they were cheap. And that's why I think people bought so much of it. It was out there and you could spend less than $10 and buy a box. And when you open the box, it was a good product, really. I mean, for an upstart, it was a good product. I think people really enjoyed the process of opening it. Now, the thing that made things difficult with this is it had 3 series technically, and so that made it a little bit more confusing. They just kept printing new series. They made a lot of mistakes as well. If you look at the pop reports and you look at the checklist, there's a lot of variations to some of the cards where they have some just like minor tweaks and mistakes, and so you could tell that the production was, let's just get these printing. And then they fixed some of the mistakes. And those mistakes ended up being some of the more valuable cards at the time. Not necessarily as much now, but back then I remember those variations being in high demand. And I know there was like a William Perry one. There's John Elway. The difference was like drafted in the first round, acquired in the first round. So they went through and I think they fixed some of those errors, and so that made for a lot of variations. But the other thing, Chris, that you brought to my attention and was interesting to note is we saw football players, professional football players, on a sports card in their college uniforms.
Right.
And that was unique.
Right. And now, people kind of poo-poo that. They don't like it. But at that point, before 1989, if you wanted a rookie of that year, let's say we're talking 1988, the 1988 Topps football cards, the rookie cards were from 1987. And you talked about this set being a disruptor, ProSet being a disruptor. Topps had always been doing that. So if you have, guys that were drafted in 1983, their rookie card came out in 1984. Well, this was the first year that Topps had to make a traded set because they were forced to. Because you had 1989 Score that had rookies. Now, those were all headshots. And 1989 ProSet that had the players in their college uniforms. Take a look there at some of the boxes. Again, Series 1, Series 2 box. That was the number one pick that year. Troy Aikman was the number one pick to the Dallas Cowboys. It's him in his UCLA jersey, and you see the graphic in the corner there. It says number one pick. That was one of the things, too, those variations. I know there was like an Andre Rison card. There was like 4 different things that were written in the little corner thing. I remember that was always a big deal. But that's the other thing about this set. Not only is this kind of a disruptor and a game changer type of set that was very different than anything that we'd seen before, but it didn't hurt that this was a very historic rookie class with a ton of Hall of Fame players in the rookie class as well. We've got Troy Aikman here. He was the number 1 pick. Number 3 pick was Barry Sanders going to the Detroit Lions out of Oklahoma State. Then we had Derek Thomas as the number 4 pick going to the Chiefs. Number 5 pick, Deion Sanders, went to Atlanta. And you notice I didn't say the number 2 pick. He is the only one of the top 5 that didn't make the Hall of Fame, and that was Tony Mandrich, who was will go down as one of the greatest draft busts of all time, just because that top 5 was, those guys were all household names, and the Packers went with Tony Mandrich that year and passed up Barry Sanders and Deion Sanders and Derek Thomas.
The incredible bulk, right? That was Tony Mandrich, and I think it was pretty well known, or has become well known. He was a guy who relied quite heavily on steroids, and that impacted his game, and then injuries and just lack of talent just kind of forced him out. But all the guys you mentioned, all those cards, those were in Series 2. Correct. And even Series 1, and I do want to talk. We can jump Series 1 right now, because Series 2 is such an iconic set and an iconic series. And the ProSet Prospects, that title, it kind of reminded me of the Bowman Firsts. And it was that, again, we talk about those disruptors, things that are normal now. That was not normal back then. And so if you're listening to us on the podcast, we showed some of the cards and on the video cast, and the cards were very sharp looking as well. Like you said, not just the image, but you had the lines down the side. It was a very clean look. You had the helmet of the team that they were drafted by. We're talking about the rookies that are in their college unis. It was a sharp looking card, and even the back, really nice looking card as well. Nice headshot, good amount of information about the players. We're looking at a Steve Atwater card.
He was the other Hall of Famer that came out of that rookie class. I think what you're trying to get to is Series 1 actually had what a lot of people consider as the rookie cards for a lot of guys that ended up in the Hall of Fame. You've got Thurman Thomas here. You got Chris Carter. You got Michael Irvin, Tim Brown. And these are all considered, Rod Woodson, Hall of Famer. Those were all considered rookie cards of those guys, even though they were most of them came out of the 88 draft. But with Topps, those cards, those were all their rookie cards in 89. So I think they grandfathered ProSet and Score in with that rookie.
Sure, right. No, that's a good way to put it, and it was. And think about the names we just listed off, dude. This is crazy. Like, that is an obscene amount of Hall of Fame superstar talent, and some other guys too. Dermontti Dawson, Rod Woodson, you mentioned. I think Randall McDaniel. I mean, there were guys all over the place, just Hall of Fame, and it was just a really, really good class. And so Series 1 was cards. Let's see, I had it written down here. I don't want to misquote it here. So the first series consisted of 440 cards. And then they came up with the second series that was just 100. And that's where you got the Barry Sanders and the Troy Aikmans and the Deion Sanders. And then they had a 21 card update set at that was their last release. And those were the guys that had been traded right before the season and guys that maybe had come so that set really didn't have many rookies. Like Sterling Sharp was in there, and that was the more desirable. They also had Herschel Walker in a Vikings uniform. I don't want to talk about that, but as a Vikings fan, we want to forget about that as much as we can. But that's so overall there were 591 cards spread out over those three sets. And so it just showed the disruption that this set caused, and it created just a new, unique wrinkle in the hobby where, okay, they're just going to print more cards because, again, you're talking about they owned they owned all the printing properties, and so they could just create without too much, I would say, too much paperwork. But I don't know exactly how Topps does it, but it just seems like they were able to print at will.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's exactly right. And what was funny is I think it was actually Denny who coined this term, but he said we want to make a living set. And, I think at that time he thought he was the first to do it. I know that there were baseball card sets, including the T206 set that was kind of thought of as a living set. But, it was the first time in a long time anyone had done that. And I know that I think there's like 4 different Jim McMahon cards in the set as well.
Yes.
He got traded to San Diego that year. So just a lot of interesting different things that they did. And, the backs of the cards, you talked a little bit about that. Those were color as well. They had a color photo on the back of them. That's Joe Montana's right there. Full statistics there, not just the last year or two. So they really did kind of pull out all the stops. And like I said before, this card felt very different than what the Topps cards felt like. I mean, it did, like I said, didn't have gloss on it, but it felt that way. So these packs, they had Series 1 and Series 2 boxes. You'd get 504 cards in a box. Series 1 was a 440 card set. Series 2 was 100 cards. It was 441 through 540. And when you bought a box of Series 2, basically about 10 of those cards is going to be Series 1 cards, and you get about 4 Series 2 cards in every pack. What I can tell you is that I've opened a handful of these boxes in the last few years, and the collation is absolutely horrific. You will get several of the same packs, and you'll get several of the same cards. I opened Series 2, a bunch of Series 2 packs maybe about 2 or 3 months ago. I think I bought 7 packs at a show, and I got 4 Deion Sanders rookies, and I think 2 Troy Aikman rookies in there. I opened a box of Series 1 maybe about a year ago, and I think I got like 8 Jerry Rice cards, and I think maybe 7 Dan Marinos. But then you don't get some of the other stars.
Sure.
So if you think you're going to open a box and get a set, that's not going to happen. If you're somewhere at a show and you're interested in these cards and you like them, and you open a pack and get a Barry Sanders or get one of the cards that you want, my advice would be to keep buying more packs, because there's going to be more of those cards in there. In that little area. So it's just kind of a horrible collation type of thing. But if you, like I said, if you kind of see the cards that you want, you're going to want to just go ahead and pick those up. I was at a shop, I don't know, maybe a few months ago, and they had some loose packs there. And I think they wanted like 75 cents for them. Yeah. And I snapped them all up. And then they had a box, and they wanted $50 for the box. And I'm like, hold on a second. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, the packs are 75 cents, but it's $50 for the box. And the guy goes, he just looks at me and goes, that's how much the boxes are selling for online. And he goes, I know with the pack price, it really should be like a $25 box. But because people basically search these boxes, and once they know what's in there,
Sure.
then they either keep opening or stop opening, the value of the box is worth a lot more than the value of the packs, because you're just going to assume people kind of know what's in those packs.
Yeah.
So because I had opened
sense.
these, it made sense to me, but I think to a lot of people, they'd be like, what are you talking about? So
no, and that makes more sense. And you clearly have a lot more, institutional knowledge of this pack openings. Let me ask you this. This was another one of those disruptor changes, whatever you want to call it, the way that it's packaged, the little plastic case or the plastic packaging, that the packs came in. That was relatively new at that time as well. And from what I remember, the cards came out pretty good at the time, but if they're loose now, those cards, it doesn't protect the corners very well.
Correct. Yep.
And that's still the case, right?
Yeah, it's the old garbage bag packs, and I think we first kind of saw those with 1988 Score baseball, and then of course Score brought them back again for many years, and they were also in this product as well. Yes. And with ProSet I think in '91 went to a foil pack that was not quite like the foil kind of papery packed it upper deck used, but it was pure foil, and so they went to that pack I think in 91 or 92. I remember that purple pack that ProSet had, but they had this type of pack I know in 89 and 1990 for sure. And definitely if you run into these things, you will run into a lot of if you see them like in a 50-cent bin or something, you're probably going to be dealing with some bad corners. The reality is, these cards don't hold a ton of value unless they're PSA 10 type of cards, but they are super fun. They are nostalgic. They're fun to open, especially people that are kind of our age in our mid 40s, because these are the guys that we watched when we were, in middle school. So.
And we got a comment. Legendary names. Like, this is absolutely right. Like, this is when you go through that list, it's crazy. It's obscene. I don't know if you're going to talk about this. We haven't really discussed. We don't do, just for our own listeners and viewers. Chris and I don't go over our notes. We just say, hey, here's the set. We just kind of riff. And I don't know if you're going to talk about this, so I'm going to throw it out there. The most valuable card from this set is, do you know?
Let's see. Know. He's a jolly fellow.
Yes, you do. Okay, good. You did your research well. Yes, it's jolly old Saint Nick. The story about this one is unique. And I'd heard about it, and digging into this set, found out a little bit more about this. So this is, if you're listening to us on the podcast, it is a picture of Santa Claus, and he is a player coach, apparently. So from what I gathered, and Chris, maybe you can, you can either, agree with this, refute this, I don't know, but these were given to dealers as part of like a thank you for doing business with us / greeting, holiday greeting. So they sent a greeting card with the Santa card to dealers to tell them thank you for selling our product. And it kind of became an icon of the hobby because of its rarity. Is that kind of the story you got?
Right. Yeah. This card was kind of a dealer thank you. I don't know how many each dealer got, but I know they didn't come in packs. They were just kind of given.
Right.
The next year, 1990, I believe they were a short print, but they were available.
They were
packs.
Yes. But not 89.
Yeah. In 89, they were not. The other thing I can tell you, which is really, I thought was pretty interesting, but in each of the Santa Claus cards, Ludwell Denny actually appears in it. And do you know where Ludwell Denny is in this card?
I see him in the background in the window. It looks like
I bet. In the window, that's correct.
Yeah, there's two. It looks like two people back there.
Yeah, I don't know if that's Ludwell and it will maybe like his son or something, but that is the larger gentleman is Ludwell. looking in the window, which isn't creepy at all. But
no, not at all. No. I guess if you own a card company, you can do whatever the hell you want, right?
right. He appeared, I think, later on, like in 91 or 92. And I don't know if it was a card that somebody made, but I saw it on the internet. He appeared wearing like a Giants sweater and looking like the New York Giants head coach as well. But, this is a guy that I think, just imagine if we owned a card company and like you're just like, yeah, right. Let's do it. Or put ourselves on the card, like that's kind of what this guy was
this
like.
guy went big, he's like you said, he's from Texas. Everything in Texas is big, and this guy had a big personality. But that Santa card, I had to do a little bit more digging, a little more research. There's only 162 of them that have been graded. Okay. So the rarity scarcity is very, very clear there. Just 57 are 10s. So when we talk about like frisky low pops and just low pop potential, that is the card. And and those cards sell. We talked about that being the most valuable card from this set. And technically it's not from the set. It was, you can't really say that because you're not going to get it in a pack, but they sell for about $1,500 to $2,000. So, when we talk about the goats of this set, Santa's right up there. Yeah. Right. I mean, he's the ultimate goat, right? So, he's an HOFer as well. So, it's just an interesting story behind that because I'd always heard it. And, I'd collected ProSet cards after that. And I remember getting some of the Santa cards, but then I looked back at this one. I'm like, why didn't I get this card? Or did I get this card? And then you realize, no, you didn't. But, just one another quirks of this set and the guy who runs it and, the ideas behind this. And so just another little wrinkle for what makes this 89 ProSet tops or 89 ProSet set so unique.
Yeah, you talked a little bit about PSA numbers with that card. We can get into those a little bit here more as well. We got a comment from Hassan earlier, and he adds now they were off-centered a lot.
Great point.
They definitely
great point.
So that's what made them difficult graders as well, just because they were off-centered a lot. The nice thing about these cards, though, is because they did have the different color backgrounds on them. If there was a corner problem with it, it was pretty easy to see. So you're not going to send a card in and be like, "Whoa, I didn't realize I had a bad corner." It is pretty easy to see that kind of damage on them. They did have some issues with.
There's a good off-center one, yeah.
Yeah, that shows some off-center, but I just love that photo, and I just don't.
Great.
I mean, the football almost seems like it's coming at you. I mean, there's a lot of depth in that photo, and you can see the background of it is out of focus. This is the John Elway card, but you just didn't see photos like this in a lot of football cards before this. And, we think about this era and go, not like what we make today and what we see today. And that's true. But this definitely was a breakthrough in 1989 compared to what we've been seeing. There was announcer cards as well.
Yes. I'm glad you put these in there. Yes. Good call.
So that was kind of an interesting thing. And the announcers like Tom Jackson and Dan Dierdorf actually appeared in their uniforms when they're playing. So like this Al Michaels card, he's in his suit with his microphone. But if you were to pull, a Dierdorf or, Frank Gifford, he was in, a Giants uniform from the 50s. So that was kind of an interesting thing to see. And again, we see throwback cards all the time now, but back then, for you to pull a card that would have Frank Gifford playing football, and it just wasn't something that you'd typically see. So
let me ask you this, Chris: if you're pulling cards today out of a retail box, how excited would you be if you pulled a broadcaster?
Probably not very excited.
Okay. They also had all the head coaches too.
Right.
That was the other thing too. So like. That's like another one. Yeah, Bill Parcells. There you go, right there. Like, if you were pulling cards today and you're like, sweet. All right. Yeah, Mike Zimmer. All right. This is awesome, or, someone else like who's not a Hall of Famer. And then you just He gave up a card to get this. I mean,
What's interesting though is the 1990 set, 1 year after this, has one Bill Belichick in a Browns uniform, and that was Bill Belichick's rookie card.
Yes,
and it does selling for big bucks in a PSA 10 a year ago.
I get you, absolutely, it was, and I'm glad you brought that up, because that does kind of defeat what the jokes are making now, because there is the market for that, but I just look at it now and just go, it's cool. I mean, it's cool that Al Michaels has a card. Right? It's really cool. But if you were to pull that now and be like, ooh, a Chris Collinsworth or a Joe Buck, you'd be like, oh, man. But
Joe Buck's dad actually was Jack Buck.
Jack Buck? Yes, he was. And so I think that's maybe, some of the iconic guys. I mean, John Madden, obviously, Al Michaels. That's cool. They had
Madden was in the set.
He wasn't. No, Bob Costas was. I know that. So just again, another just interesting wrinkle. But, I think they were just looking at like, okay, how are we going to fill these cards? How are we going to do it? And maybe they were trying to fill the sheets, the card sheets. Like we've talked about that too. It's like, how do they come up with the numbers they do? Well, that's the even number of sheets that they were printing at that time. And so they needed to fill with guys, and they were.
I'm gonna drive us off a whole other road too.
Yes, please do, because that's what this Wednesday night's for.
Infuriating when you're opening 1990 Skybox basketball than getting those stupid cards with the team logo on them.
Oh yeah, those. Like, there you go.
Jordans, and you pull the team logo card, and you're like, oh.
You just wasted a card. It's a waste of a card, right? And so that's just kind of how this feels too. But now looking back, it's kind of cool because it's unique. But I didn't look to see how many Al Michaels cards had been graded or Bob Costas, but maybe that's something we can look at later. But I can tell you that 30,000 of these cards have been graded. So again, it just shows you just the massive amount of cards that were out there. I think that's a large number for a set, and especially 89, or an era of that's not exactly vintage, not exactly modern, but in that wheelhouse of the junk wax era. So of those, 10,000 are 10s. So you get about a 33% gem rate. And then, and then 12,000 were 9s. So I think what you saw with the 9s, which it tells me that the corners probably held up well. The centering was, as Hassan mentioned, which was a great call out. That was the ding on these cards, and you could really, really tell when this card was off center because it had those borders that ran parallel, and so when you got a card that was close to being perfect, it was unique, it was different. So, and when you look at the cards that have been graded the most, I did a top 10. The number one card by a large margin was Barry Sanders, and his card has been graded over 12,000 times. There's 2,400 10s. So, that's fewer than the numbers that we're talking about. So that tells me that the Barry cards are probably in a corner or at a bottom or something like that where, it was just getting miscut and it was hard to get that thing centered. And so when you go look at some of the other ones, Troy Aikman the same way, there were 4,200 of his cards graded. There's fewer than 1,000 10s. But then you go to Deion Sanders, there's 2,600 graded and over 1,000 are 10s. So it really mattered where they were on the sheet, and I think that's that's just standard with a lot of cards. And who knows how these were cut, and if you have your own printing press, they might have made a mistake. They might have just kept cutting and not figuring we need to make sure that these are centered. They wanted to push.
I think a lot of it also though is if you have a Barry Sanders card and it's maybe this is a 10, maybe it's a 9. You send it, but with a Deion card, you're like, I'm not going to send this unless I have a 10. Steve Atwater had 286 cards graded, 154 10s.
Yes.
And you're not going to
Yeah,
send in
true.
a Steve Atwater card unless you're like, this card is definitely going to be a 10. I know Steve's in a Hall of Fame, but it did take him a little while to get in. I think he was inducted in 2020. A great player, no doubt, but just doesn't carry the value that Barry Sanders or Troy Aikman.
So you're saying you're a little bit more judicious in how you're treating those cards. And
correct. Yeah.
Barry Sanders and Troy Aikman. Barry Sanders was just send it. I mean, that's clear. That was a just send it because he's a H. But at the same time, Deion Sanders, 2,600. That's 10,000 fewer cards graded. I mean, that's a significant chunk, in my opinion. I think Deion still, has a lot of fans. A lot of people in the hobby liked him, and so as a player, and so maybe that could be the case. And Barry Sanders is just the outlier, and even Troy Aikman. I thought 4,200 of his cards graded. I thought that was low, to be honest with you. As far as how many were out there. I feel like when we opened these boxes and you talked about it, you had a couple pack. There were a lot. You were pulling those cards. You were pulling those cards. So there's a lot of them out there.
For sure.
And so when we look at down the list, those are the top 3. And those guys all came out of Series 2. Series 1, guy from Series 1 was number 4. That's Michael Irvin. His card, he's under 1,000 graded. Now we get under 1,000. So there's a big drop off after Deion Sanders. And he's had just over 800 graded for Michael Irvin. And then Tim Brown, Thurman Thomas, Derek Thomas. And then the first non-rookie was Bo Jackson. His card has been graded just over 500 times. And then Chris Carter. And then Randall McDaniel rounds out the top 10. So, much love to the offensive lineman. And, he was a dominant force for the Vikings for so long. Hall of Famer, not a Super Bowl champion because he played for the Vikings his whole career. But, again, one of those things that's you just go down this list and the guys that we mentioned that are not on this list that had unbelievable careers, that's interesting too. Rod Woodson, we were talking about, some of the other guys, Rodney Peete had a nice career, not a Hall of Fame. Eric Allen. These are some of the other, ProSet prospects that, at the time, let's just say at the time, were the guys you collected. Maybe not Eric Allen, but he went on to have a nice career as a cornerback. And, you mentioned Steve Atwater. And one of the cards that, we touched on, briefly, but it was hot for a while from the set was the Andre Rison. And boy, that was a bad play on words. I didn't mean to do that, honestly. I mean, if you know his background, saying hot is probably, but his market was hot for his card. And I think a lot of people wanted his cards because he was kind of Deion's sidekick, right? In Atlanta and, the Birds and, with Jerry Glanville. And he was the guy doing the duck walk and all this stuff in the end zone. And he was cool. He was on Sports Center. He was on NFL Prime Time. And so I think that card had a market to it. Eventually it fizzled out. But, just another guy in this list of great players that had good long careers, many of them Hall of Famers, other ones that, I would say are, we just say a comment there. Eric Allen, underrated. I agree. I think he was, good longevity at a tough position to have longevity. So you could open these packs right now and pull a lot of these cards. For sure. I think that's one of the things that, you saw and I saw, and I don't know, Chris, what they're going for now. Like the boxes. I don't know if you've looked that up recently and see what the prices are. If somebody's looking at this video and going, boy, I'd love to look at what a Series 2 box is going for now. I did not look this up, but I know you always kind of track this stuff, so I'll turn that over to you.
Yeah, you talked about buying these for $10 at Sam's Club. And, there were people at that time that were definitely buying boxes and socking them into a closet and keeping them forever. If you were to break these boxes out, in 2017 or 2018, you probably would have barely got your money back from what you paid at Sam's Club. And you figure inflation and you would have lost big. But if you would have held on to it for another 3 or 4 years, you would have made a lot of money. Last year, the Series 2 boxes were selling for about $100. But really, they're still holding on pretty strong. Series 2 boxes right now on eBay, they're selling for about $70, especially when you start figuring shipping into it, anywhere from $60 to $80, basically. And even the Series 1 boxes, $40 to $50. And if you put in shipping, I would say 40 to 60 is probably what you could expect to pay. Now, if you go to a show and you happen to find these at a show, you're probably going to get a little better deal on them.
Right.
But they're still, obviously you won't have shipping to pay, but they're still going to cost you quite a bit of money. And the thing that doesn't make sense to me, and you and I, we've got a show coming up pretty soon talking about stop wasting money on packs. You can buy the singles of these cards like for practically nothing.
Virtually nothing. Yes.
It makes no sense to open packs other than just to enjoy the nostalgia of it, because you can buy the Barry Sanders rookies regularly for $2. You can buy lots of them if you want to buy a 10-card lot for like $15. I mean, they don't carry the value. That's why the box price just doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me, other than people are buying them because this is, like you said, this is a set that'll everybody that's our age remembers going to the card shop and buying these. It was fun, and you can pull, you just look at that list of we talked about all the Hall of Fame rookie cards, but then you've got Montana and you've got Jerry Rice and Dan Marino and John Elway and all these guys in there as well. So, I mean, you are definitely going to be stacking up some penny sleeves with Hall of Fame players by these boxes, but unfortunately, the card values themselves just aren't there. But
it's a nostalgic pull, right? It's a nostalgic rip.
Yeah,
I think that's probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, they do. And one of the things that we talk about a lot here is the frisky low pop, the cards that haven't been sent to the graders very often. And obviously right now with $50 grading, you're not going to send a Bo Jackson card in. But I think the Bo Jackson card, I believe, and I didn't take notes on this, I just saw it when I was going through the pop report today. I believe there was 54 cards that have been graded in the Bo Jackson card. So if you want to take some cards and be like, hey, I'm going to have, if you had 10 of them graded, you would own basically, 15% of all of them that are out there. Right now, $50 grading doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but if you can put some together where you're like, I'm very confident in this card being a 10, if we get back down into that $10, $12 graded card zone again, I think I would send some, just because it's just not a card that's been graded a lot, and it's an iconic player. It's a player that a lot of people collect. I've been lotting up a bunch of junk wax cards and just putting them on eBay for pretty reasonable prices. And I've got a bunch of Bo cards out there, and they sell almost immediately. I mean, people still buy Bo. There's a ton of people that collect Bo. I mean, he's forever going to be an icon as long as at least our generation's walking around this planet.
So this is a new one for the show. This is where you and I just let you talk, and then I correct you.
Okay.
I think there's 540 of those Bo cards that have been graded.
All right. Well, I feel like there was maybe it was like a Marino or Elway or something. It was a player that I saw when I was going through and going, geez, there should be way more of those cards graded than there are. It was an iconic player that I saw when I was going through the pop report today. And I was like, it was under 100 cards. And I know you said there's 30,000 cards have been graded in this set. Well, the Aikman's 4,200 and the Barry Sanders 12,000 and the Dion is 4,000. So you're like 20,000 right there.
And the Marv Levy is 58.
And the Marv Levy is 58. It wasn't Marv Levy.
It wasn't Marv Levy. I'm looking through the pop report right now, and so I'll see if anything pops out at me. And Icky Woods too. They had an Icky Woods. Remember the Icky Shuffle? And so no, but the Bo Jackson card was graded 541 times. Danny Noonan had a card in there. Remember Danny Noonan? Elway. 40.
That's got to be it then. Yeah.
Yes.
45 cards for John Elway.
Yes.
And there are a few people that still collect John Elway.
Absolutely. Well, he's one of the exactly, and you showed the card. The card is an exceptional
Mhm.
looking card, and so for anybody who is a John Elway fan, that's a card that's a must have. And so Jerry Glanville's been graded 10 times. And the other thing about this set, like you said, Chris, you could go out and buy these raw, but you can also go out and buy them graded relatively cheap. I mean, these cards really didn't max out more than $150,
Mhm.
$200 maybe at the peak for PSA 10s. And so I think that's an interesting look at this set too. When you're buying boxes for $70, $80, and you can go buy PSA 10s for not much more than that, that to me feels like the better play if you're really into this.
Yeah.
If you want to buy raw, that's great, but you could go get a PSA 9 for these cards. You could probably dig for under 20 to $25.
Yeah.
And that, and so I don't understand the box thing, but the idea of buying graded cards or buying them raw, yeah, I like that a lot. And so that was one of the things that I got into when I was doing research for this set. I was like, boy, these cards are really affordable,
Mhm.
even as graded 10s. And I'm like, maybe these are something I start putting a watch on. And if I can get some of these cards for under $100 at PSA 10, Barry Sanders, Troy Aikman, I'm a buyer.
Yeah.
I'm a buyer for sure.
We're talking about Hall of Fame rookie cards and a PSA 10, and yeah, I know there's tons of them that have been printed. I get that, but there's still rarity in the 10 cards just because of all the different things we talked about, the packaging, the off center. There's still a ton of rarity in the PSA 10 card, in the premium card. So.
And those guys are going to be in demand. There's always going to be a following for those guys. Those are those guys that, and again, when you see it, you almost forget about this set a little bit because I think the 89 Score set took a lot of the headlines because those cards are just much more expensive. And so I think people are drawn to those. And these cards are kind of those diamonds in the rough a little bit that I think, when you look at them and you see them, you're like, oh yeah, I like those. And you liked them enough where you bought, boxes and packs.
Yeah, the card itself, I was also in '89 a big Score buyer too, and I remember that year because I had a job in 1989. As a 13-year-old kid, I had a job, so I was working and I had money, and it was funny because the place I worked had this. It was like a big chunk of property, and there was a house that was there, and they rented that house to all these little weird companies. Well, in 1989, they rented it to a card shop.
No kidding.
So I worked right next to a card shop. So you can imagine how that went.
Yeah.
So I spent a lot of time in there and also a lot of money. So
that is awesome.
I bought a lot of 1989 Score and a lot of 1989 ProSet. But like you said, the ProSet was always there. There was plenty of it. And it was just a more attractive card. The 1989 Score, the Score cards were nice too. I mean, it was, again, something different than what we had seen in the football business before. But this card was very attractive, and I would guess I probably bought more of this. Just another one of my poor decisions that I've made throughout my life. But, I bought a lot of both of these sets just because it was fun and it was readily available, and I was getting paid, and I would just go right next door and blow it all.
Yeah, well, that's the proximity to a card shop is never a bad thing, or maybe it is. I don't know, but regardless, it's fun, and this was at that time when you could get wax at a reasonable price, and you just rip it, and it was fun. You weren't thinking about we talk so much now about grading and value. Like back then, you weren't thinking, boy, this is off center. Oh man, this has a dinged corner. Oh man, this is not going to get a PSA 10. We didn't think like that. It was like, right. I got a Deion Sanders, I got a Barry Sanders, I got a Troy Aikman. All right, this is awesome. This is cool. I can either trade with my buddies, or I keep it, or maybe the card shop owner wants to buy it.
Right. And they weren't mugshots. The 89 score rookies were mugshots, and these were action photos in their college uniforms, which we hadn't seen. Yeah. But enough about my financial demise. Let's talk about the financial demise of ProSet. Because it was a nice party for 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And then it went goodbye. We talk about a guy who did big things, and I think it got a little bit too big for what he could handle. The company ended up filing for bankruptcy in 1994. If you go online looking for 1994 ProSet cards, you can find them, but they're definitely not as ubiquitous as the years before. I think they just basically, I almost feel like they just printed prototypes. I don't even know if they actually dropped their set that year. There's not a ton of 1994 ProSet cards out there. I think they had a golf set or something that year that was prolifically made. But I don't think the football set that year was really widely distributed. So that was it for ProSet in 1994. But as many of you probably know, in 2021, Leaf purchased kind of the right to call cards ProSet, and it came back, which was pretty cool. And for us Gen Xers,
very cool.
And that's a Trevor Lawrence card we're showing right now, but they kind of put together some cards, and a lot of them had the 89 design, some had the 1990 design. But it was cool to see them come back, even though it's an unlicensed product. But just kind of fun to see that design back in stores and back on the shelves.
Yeah, and PSA is actually grading those too. They even though it's unlicensed, I mean they've taken those in, and I have 10 of those Trevor Lawrence cards at PSA right now in grading. So I went all in on Trevor Lawrence and all in on the ProSet. So I'm excited to get those back. I will say, I can't remember how much those sold for. I bought them straight. I think you buy them straight from Leaf. Like, yeah, I think I got
like a 100-card set or something like that.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was. I think I have 10 of them. So whatever you can either buy 1, 5, 10, 100, whatever the case may be. But but they can be graded, even though it's unlicensed, like some cards can't. So that'll be fun. But it was awesome. I bought them because A, I'm a Trevor Lawrence guy. I think he's going to do stuff, and B, it was nostalgic. I love the set. Right. I wanted it. I wanted more of them. I did not pay $50 to get those graded. I did not. Those were back in the day when PSA was charging much less. So I think I'd like to talk about PSA and our current orders. If you're done wrapping up 1989 ProSet football.
I think we can put a bow on it. It was
so. It sounds good. Why don't you update everyone on the current state of your order, which is an end of an era.
Right.
I had my end of an era last show, and I did open the box and I did film it, so it will be coming to our YouTube channel very soon. Mine was a 29 card order that was $12 per card. And so I will share that with everybody coming up soon here. But Chris, tell us about your latest order, your end of an era order. Easy for me to say.
So I think we've been talking, I think maybe every other show. Yeah, my order's still in grading. So last week, I think maybe about Wednesday or Thursday, it went into assembly, and then over the weekend it went into quality check 1, and I think last night it went into quality check 2, and I got an email today at noon with my grades, and it went into shipping. So that order, I knew that there was a price hike coming on March 1st. So I think I did the submission on the 27th of February of 2021. And again, that was at the peak of card values. There is a lot of 1990 Fleer basketball in there. I sent 9 Michael Jordan cards in. And at that time, the 10 was about $1,000 card. The 9 was about $300. I sent 9 of those in, and a bunch of other Fleer cards. And we'll kind of save a lot of that for when I do the unveiling video. But there's a lot of Jordans in there, and just a lot of 1990 Fleer kind of star cards. It's a 27-card sub. Again, submission was done, I think, on the 27th of February. shipped it out on May 2nd of 2001. PSA entered it April 18th, or not
April.
2001, 2021.
Okay.
PSA entered it April 18th, 2021. And today, on May 18th, 2021, it was complete and shipping out. So I would guess that I'll see this kind of middle of next week, probably. So I guess we're talking about 15 months door to door.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the return of your cards, which have been sitting at PSA for 15, 16 months. Patience, like we used to say on this show, patience is a virtue when it comes to PSA and card collecting, unless you're willing to spend $50 per card to get them graded. I can tell you a submission that I sent to PSA that was received on April 29th, 8-card order is already in assembly.
Nice.
So that's I actually sent in a bunch of LeBron James rookie cards that I had, those long, the bigger, oversized cards from his rookie set. I went and bought a bunch of those online, relatively cheap. I think I can flip them pretty good. I'm still bullish on LeBron, going forward. I know he's not in the playoffs. I know he didn't make it, but so they're still moving through the 50. They will gladly cash your $50 card checks. They're still, working through some cards. I have 2 other orders. One's $20 and one's $25 order. And that will then be the quote, that'll be the end of the era for me. That'll be the, because that at this point, consider that to be the cheapest card grading price that we've seen in sometimes at $25. So that'll be fun to open. I have some interesting cards in there. I have a Wayne Gretzky rookie in there. It has a crease in it, so I'm not expecting it to be probably more than a 2 or 3, but I have a Derek Jeter rookie card gold in that card, I have a Billy Ripken F face, like not scribble or anything. So some cool stuff we're going to unveil. And Chris, you kind of showed me or told me what was in the submission that you're getting back here in a week, and should be fun to reveal here on our channel. And the video that I shot last week of my reveal, I think you'll enjoy it. I'm happy it only cost me $12 per card to get graded. I'll tell you that much. And I will mention that many times during the show as you're looking at this, going, man, this guy sent that card in to get graded. That guy sent that card to get graded. Yes, I did, because it was $12. We have to remind people, because some people might think we spent $50 to get these cards graded. I don't think we're that dumb.
Well, we could be, but
that's why I kind of said that way. And I know we're live here on Wednesday night, and for anybody who's watching live, the Calgary Edmonton Oilers hockey game is on in the foreground here for me. It's bonkers. There's guys laying on the ice. The game is over. It's 9-6. Calgary won, but they're fighting as the game is okay. Watch the highlights. If you're listening on the podcast much later than this live, go look up the highlights, because this is old school hockey at its absolute best. And if you don't like hockey, and we do like hockey, and we've mentioned this a lot on our shows, holy smokes, man, get into the hockey playoffs, because that is when hockey is at its absolute best. 9-6. Whoa. Man, this is crazy. Man, this will get you watching hockey. Oh, man, this is crazy. But I'm getting off track here. I have a little bit of, catching my attention, trying to stay focused here on the show, Chris. But you're losing me.
That Calgary Dallas series was incredible. There was a lot of fights in that game, in that series as well, a lot of hitting. And now we've got the Battle of Alberta. I mean, yes. Calgary and Edmonton right down the road from each other. I mean, it is both of those fan bases are very passionate, of course, about their hockey. They're out in Manitoba. like it's hockey life, baby. There's not a whole lot else. You leave Edmonton, once you get outside the city limits, you are in the middle of nowhere. So it is
Indeed
a hockey place. They live and die it. A really fun video too, if you're out there looking for something, was the Game 7, the crowd out in front of the stadium.
Yes.
That game went to overtime. Just watching that crowd react to the goal going in to win the series was really fun. But actually what I enjoyed the most was they almost scored about 3 seconds earlier, and the whole crowd reacts like, oh, and then all of a sudden they get to go crazy. So that was super fun. But yeah.
And we should mention too, since we're talking about live sports right now, the Warriors just dismantled Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. And you and I were texting kind of before this series, is Luka poised to get over the hump and get to the NBA Finals, and what will that do for his card value? Like Luka is looked at as by many in the hobby as the next great, I mean, truly like elite NBA player, and his card value has always been just moonshot. And here he is, Final Four in the NBA, and he's down 0-1 and really going to have a hard time getting past the Warriors. But watching his cards, and you and I talked about it. You said I'm all in on Doncic. I'm like, I am too. I just don't have the money to go in on his cards because they are ridiculously priced.
Yeah, it is. It's crazy. He's just a different guy and different skill set than a lot of guys in the NBA. But it'll be interesting, this whole NBA Finals, just because we've got a lot of different faces in there. The Heat, they haven't been to the finals in a long time. The Celtics, it's a whole new group of guys on that team since they were in the finals. You've got the Warriors, that pretty similar team to what they've had, but obviously Durant not there. But if Dallas were to make it, that would be a completely different team than the last time they made it. So it'll be interesting to see some kind of new faces emerge. And I'm just glad the Nets are done.
Yeah, it is. No thanks to the Nets. But yeah, you have some really, really good young players. You have Jason Tatum, obviously. You have Luka Doncic. And then you have Steph Curry. It'll be interesting to watch the price of these guys. And that was what was so remarkable about the NBA playoffs a couple years ago, when card collecting was at its boom. Like, a guy would have one good game and his card would go up like $500. Like, it was nuts. And, we've talked about this before on the show, like the speculative market, but the reactive market at that time was just, and that gave birth to a lot of new ways to trade cards. And, there was Star Stock, and they held your card, and you could, kind of use it like the stock market, and people were cashing in. And now the market doesn't fluctuate as much on one game. So, but it'll be interesting to see. Like, Steph Curry to me is interesting. If he goes and wins a title without Durant, that puts him in a little bit of a different stratosphere, in my opinion. So his cards are going to take a bump. And Doncic, obviously, already a hobby darling. His cards are going to take a bump. I think Jason Tatum, I think he's a guy that can take a bump as well. Jimmy Butler, I don't know if he's a hobby favorite, but dang, does he get going in the playoffs. And it's undeniable that, he's the type of guy that is going to catch some attention when it comes to people in the hobby, because he doesn't turn it on quite like this in the regular season. I'm not saying he doesn't play the same, or, he's still a great player, but playoff Jimmy Butler is just a different breed. So it'll be interesting to watch the movement on those cards and to see where the values go. And NBA, more than anything, I think at this point, there's a lot of eyeballs on the NBA, including us who are, I would say, much less than casual fans. We don't watch the regular season at all, but once the playoffs start, I have my eye to it. And I think that's something that the hobby is going to be watching as well. And NFL's starting right now too. They got the OTAs and some of these off-season training programs going. So you're going to see that pop in the news as well. So, even in the off seasons, the people are talking and the hobby swings and we'll be here to capture it all. And, whether it's talking about 1989 ProSet or, the speculative market, there's always something to talk about.
Yeah, and if we run out of things to talk about, we can also talk about Baker Mayfield.
There's always something to talk about with Baker Mayfield, except for, that's kind of been quiet. And I think, that might be another topic for another show. But, the interesting discussion on Sports Talk Radio was the NFL and the other teams are punishing the Browns for signing Deshaun Watson to the contract that he got. So nobody's going to take on Baker Mayfield. You're either going to have to cut him or you're going to have to keep him, but nobody's going to give up any assets for him, which, interesting theory, but, wouldn't put it past the 31 other owners.
Right. Yeah. It's a lot of weird things going on out there. The funnest part for me about the Baker Mayfield saga was that podcast interview he did, about a month ago with the dog laying on the couch on his back. I mean, that we should really start doing that, is getting a little wider shot, getting the dog. Yeah.
There's my dog, but he's laying normal. Can I get a look? Dog? Nope. But normally he'll lay on his back like that too. So but that would have been awesome to have at that exact moment my dog belly up. Just it's like that became the story, right? It's like, is that dog alive? Like, people were more interested in the dog's life than Baker Mayfield's life. It's like, which one's dead, his career or the dog? Like, the dog's fine, I think.
Yeah. You mentioned belly up, so between Baker Mayfield's career and the dog, both things belly up.
Exactly. Well, this has been a good chat. Hopefully everybody enjoyed it. Again, if you're listening to us on our podcast, we're on YouTube, CardFellas. You can find us there. Where every Wednesday we try and go live and talk about a specific set. And if you're on YouTube, go to wherever you get your podcasts, and you can find us there, CardFellas. We're trying to put out content on a more regular basis. Like Chris said, we're touching on some topics, some of the things we have coming up. Just unique things that we see in the hobby, and we feel like we can talk about it. We call them their shorties, even though we can get long-winded and they don't turn out to be too short. We do have a smaller snippet that we call shorties that hopefully you enjoy. And we got a lot of awesome followers here on YouTube that come with some great comments. Most of them are positive. Most of them are engaging. They're not telling us that we're idiots, which is great. So I appreciate that, because there's a lot of hate on social media, and so to have some positive in the world and just continuing the conversation, that's what the comments do. Love to see it, love to hear it. So let us know what you're thinking, and maybe we'll turn it into shows. What do you guys want to hear about? What do you want to hear us talk about? Get involved. We'd love to hear from you.
Yeah, we love those comments, and I know you've been on there as well, but we try to answer every comment too. So you'll get a reply from us just about every time. So we're not that big yet, We're trying to talk to everybody. We appreciate it. Like Matt said, it actually has been really fun, because the feedback that we've gotten from the show is all really been very positive. So it's been
it is, and it reminds you how awesome the hobby is and how many people are like us. That's the other part. There's just a lot of average Joes that are not, these big breakers. We're the common guys in the hobby, and we're just trying to, give a voice to all those and make sure and have a little fun along the way. As long as we're not, spending all our money like you did back in 1989 at the card shop next door. So I think we're a little bit more fiscally responsible than 12, 13-year-old Chris.
Yeah, that 12, 13-year-old Chris really didn't have anything to spend his money on. So it was either cards or Cracker Jacks, baby. So
yeah, take them both.
All right, for Matt, I'm Chris. Thanks again for watching and listening this week. We'll see you next time.